Hey, let's go to Skype and bring in Chris Chase. He is a sports writer for USA Today, a very popular sports writer for USA Today, and his most recent article at usatoday.com is about LeBron James and LeBron's legacy. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Chris, if you will, give us a little capsule of what you wrote for today's USA Today and how yet another loss in the NBA Finals, his fourth loss in the NBA Finals, either adds or detracts from his legacy.
First of all, I appreciate you calling me popular because after today's post, I'm decidedly less popular than I was 24 hours ago. Because what I said is that LeBron's legacy is slowly being shaped into something that's more negative than we thought it would be 3, 4, 5 years ago. He's now 2-4 in NBA Finals, and it doesn't matter whether or not Kevin Love was there, whether or not Kyrie Irving was hurt, or the supporting cast around him. All that anyone cares about when talking about legacy is the numbers. And people can argue this all day. I got a tweet saying, well, Jerry West lost 9 titles. Does that diminish his career? Hell yes, it does. It absolutely does. Dr. J only won 1. Does that diminish his career? Yes. They're still great players, but you only talk about players when it comes to championships. Ask Dan Marino, ask Charles Barkley.
What more could have LeBron James done in this series? Which, I'm trying to play devil's advocate. I actually agree with you. 10 years from now, if LeBron James' record in the NBA Finals is 3-5, people aren't going to remember Kyrie Irving was hurt in these finals. But to take up the flag of Cleveland Cavs fans, so what else did you want LeBron to do in this series? What more could have he done?
Right. He couldn't have done much more. I wrote another post today saying that he had the most awesome worst series in NBA Finals history because his numbers were insane. I mean, the stat about him leading both teams in points, rebounds, and assists is just mind-boggling if you really think about it. I mean, that's crazy that he was able to do that, especially against a team that's so offensive like the Warriors and so defensive. You would think somebody on that team would get more boards. But, in terms of what he could have done, maybe he could have tried to get other teammates involved. He shot so poorly. He was 13 for 33 the last game. He had his lowest shooting numbers in a long time. So it was not a poor performance, but efficiency-wise, it wasn't the best. But you're right. He couldn't have done much more, and it stinks that Kyrie Irving got hurt in Game 1 because it might have been a more interesting series. But everyone who says LeBron took this team to the finals on his back, they're correct, but they still forget that Kyrie Irving was there until the finals. And losing Kevin Love actually seemed to help the Cavs. So I don't know how much of a loss that was in terms of this particular team.
He's Chris Chase coming to us live via Skype. He writes for USA Today, and all live guests are brought to you by Papa John's, the official sponsor of the Colorado Rockies baseball team.
Chris, I think you make a very interesting point because as I watched this series and as I watched LeBron last night, and I think you could tell LeBron last night was working on short rest, and he had done so much that even as great as he is, that he wasn't at peak efficiency. Great players, and we saw it here in Denver with John Elway forever, tend not to trust lesser players. And LeBron is a good teammate, but would it have been on LeBron to trust Tristan Thompson more and Mozgov more and, heaven forbid, J.R. Smith more? Or is that on David Blatt to shape the offense and the way they play basketball in these finals? Who bears the most responsibility, or what's the breakdown in responsibility there?
I think it's a bit of both, but I think the LVP, the least valuable player or person in the series, was Blatt because he got outcoached by Steve Kerr. Once Steve Kerr went small, the Cavs were forced to bench Timofey Mozgov, who had a great Game 5. And so Kerr going small changed the series, and Blatt couldn't think of a way to sort of, get the Cavs to respond to that. But LeBron does shoulder some blame, and the question is never answered. It's a sort of this, hypothetical nebulous question in how much does a great player affect the players around him? Would Scottie Pippen have been as great without Michael Jordan? Would John Paxson have been around in the league so long? I mean, Jordan won titles with some cast who weren't that great, other than Pippen. I mean, they had Bill Wennington and Bill Cartwright playing big minutes, and so
Steve Kerr.
Yes, exactly.
Steve Kerr.
Yeah. I mean, so Jordan made these guys better, and I think Larry Bird made his teammates better. I believe Magic Johnson did. I don't think LeBron does. Can you blame that all on LeBron? No, because if the Cavs brought in some better players, then he'd be able to do what he did in Miami. But even in Miami, 2 of 4 championships. It wasn't like they won not 3, not 4, not 5. I mean, it's still an impressive feat. Championships in 4 years.
Chris,
but,
Chris, if I may interrupt for a second, did I hear you right? You're saying that LeBron didn't necessarily make his teammates better?
I believe that. I don't think that his teammates are better with him on the floor.
What about all the assist numbers? I mean, these guys are not open in the corner and hitting threes if LeBron doesn't have 2-3 guys hanging on his jersey and LeBron's not getting the ball to them.
No, I fully agree with that. I think that's more of just what happens when you double team a player. Somebody else is going to be open. I don't, other than Dellavedova, who seemed to improve in this series, I didn't see anyone really kind of step up to join LeBron. I mean, in Game 5, J.R. Smith had the first 6 or 8 points of that game, and then he went ice cold.
Well, Chris, as guys who watched Timofey Mozgov for a few years, we never saw Mozgov play this well. LeBron, I hate to say this to you, LeBron did make Timofey Mozgov a better player. Yeah,
and but the problem was he didn't play Game 5. I mean, and it's tough, and that was the decision of David Blatt. And the Cavs, I mean, have a lot of questions for next year now about what they're going to do. They have a lot of guys who aren't under contract. LeBron's not under, he can have a player option. I believe Mozgov and Irving are really the only key players who are locked in for next year. So it's going to be a very tumultuous summer in Cleveland. I think LeBron will sign very quickly, but how much input does he have on his teammates? He's always kind of stood back a little bit and sort of, washed his hands of everything and said, I'll take the players that you give me, but he needs to have more input. He needs to not be GM, not be the final say, but he needs to sort of nudge the Cavs front office in the direction that he thinks will make the team better.
Okay, and my last thing for me, along the lines of what you're saying, if you're Kevin Love, do you want to come back to the Cavs? And if you're LeBron and the Cavs, do you want Kevin Love back, obviously at a premium price?
It's so funny. You read so many different things about this. One analyst is saying they're definitely bringing Kevin Love back. Another analyst is saying there's no shot. They're saying that LeBron and Kevin Love don't get along. And, someone leaked those stories. Was it LeBron's camp? Was it Kevin Love's camp to sort of force the hand? I don't see why Kevin Love wouldn't want back on the Cavs, because this is a team that, again, came within a few shots in Game 5 of possibly being in pole position in the series. So when it comes to Kevin Love, I think he should want to go back. But does he want to go to L.A.? L.A.'s got the number 2 pick. He's a California boy. If they get either Karl Anthony Towns or Jahlil Okafor, that could be the start of the Lakers renaissance, and maybe he wants part of that. And everyone always wants to go to LA. So I don't know what Kevin Love wants. If I were Kevin Love, I'd stay, but who knows what's going through his mind.
Chris, last thing, and I want to go back to the LeBron topic. So when LeBron got this somewhat ragtag team to the NBA Finals, the whole debate about LeBron versus MJ was resurrected. Now that he's lost the finals, it seems like everybody's put that LeBron versus MJ as the greatest player ever on the back burner once again. Where do you see it?
I think MJ is the best player ever. For one of the reasons I said is that I think he made everyone around him better. He might have been a jerk off the court. He might have been a jerk at practice, but it seemed to work. I mean, he won games with Steve Kerr hitting a big shot, John Paxson hitting a big shot. He was able to kind of bring the best out of guys, including Scottie Pippen, who was a great rebounder with the Detroit Pistons. But then when he went to Chicago, he became sort of this otherworldly rebounder who was able to take the Jordan 2.0 era and win. But Jordan is not going to be passed by LeBron unless LeBron gets 7. I believe that. And LeBron's 5 titles away. That's a lot of titles. He's 30 years old. He's an old 30. He's played over, almost 1,100 games in the NBA, plus 3 Olympics, plus a couple world championships. And he plays like a running back. I mean, or like a linebacker. He's not going to have the long career that a Tim Duncan, a finesse guy, is going to have. So the time is ticking. Obviously, there's plenty of time to resurrect his legacy, and he's always going to be known as the greatest player of his generation. But he's going to need more titles, and tying Jordan's not going to do it. He's going to have to beat him.
Wow. So 4 titles, 5 titles, even tying him with 6? There's no debate there. But Chris, think of it in these terms. If he does that, that means he's gotten to 10, 11 NBA finals.
That is amazing. I mean, Jordan only got to 6, but Jordan was 6-0 in the finals, and LeBron now is, if I may be wrong, I can't remember exactly the numbers, but I think LeBron is now 1 season behind how many seasons Jordan played in Chicago. So after next year, his number, whether it's 2 or whether they win and it's 3, will be either a third or a half of what Jordan did in his 13 seasons in Chicago, not including that half season, like the quarter season he played in '95.
All right, Chris Chase of USA Today. Where can people find you? What's your Twitter handle?
FTW.U for the win. Just Google it, and we got a great site over there. My Twitter handle is the worst Twitter handle ever. It's at Chaztopher, CHAZTOPHER. Don't ask.
You can always change it, Chris.
You know what? I've looked and looked. I tried to bribe the guy who has Chris Chase, and it's funny. You go on his wall, and it's just all hate mail, and he's like, wrong Chris Chase. And I'm like, don't you want to give it to me? I mean, it would seem to, release you of this burden, but no dice from him.
All right, Chris, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it, and I hope you didn't mind me debating you a little bit there.
I love a good debate, and I appreciate it.
All right, Chris Chase of USA Today. Thanks, man.
For the Win is a very good aspect of the USA Today site, and I highly recommend it.
All right, I'm going to take a look. I had not heard of it.
Yeah,
For the Win. ForTheWin.com.
And it's little livelier debate.
Yeah.
Some social commentary. It's fun. I mean, USA Today lets its hair down there, and I think it's a fun site.
All right. I'll take a look. Hey, all live guests like Chris Chase, brought to you by Papa John's, the official sponsor of the Colorado Rockies. So the day after every Rockies win, you can get 50% off your regular menu price online order at papajohns.com. You have to use the promo code ROXWIN, ROXWIN.